suspects off the table. Will we see Azir banned, BLG, or are we taking it first? God bless!
They're going to take it away because we'll get into it if Knight ends up picking it up, but this is also a champion that Shanks has a ton of comfort on in his own right. Does mean that the Miniko has been left up. This is one of both On and Kael's most preferred champions, I would say, throughout the last couple of seasons. So no surprise to see that get locked in early. Now we'll see what BLG want to prioritize. Noticing things like the Jarvan are potentially available for the taking if Shun wants an easy playmaker. Maybe they go down into the mid lane and get Knight something he feels comfortable on.
It's an interesting one. I don't know if it'll be picked this early on, but in the last series they played, AL did ban Karma against On in every single game they played. So I'm quite curious to see if we will potentially see a Karma pickup later on into this draft, or potentially a second rotation ban. As now it is just trying to see which of those prio picks BLG want to snap up ahead of this second set of picks for AL. It will be very standard. Ryze and Zal, but it must be said the Ryze and Sivir combo, with the Shen support, we're probably not going to see that one this game, was the thing that pushed BLG over the edge to win the game 3 of their last matchup, utilizing that early rotations and map mobility as that is something.
Yeah, I was wondering if we were going to get the Anivia answer into Ryze. That's something that's been really popping up in all across the League of Legends scene, not only here in the LPL, where I feel like it really originated at some point. The Cassio, also a traditional answer into this pick. You'll be able to stifle a lot of that, power and push that the Ryze does end up having. So with that being said, a strong mid jungle opened up by anyone's legend as we finish out the first phase of this draft. It will be the Mbessa picked up blind for Bin. Now this could potentially, who am I kidding? This is not going to get swapped around. This will be a top lane Mbessa, and we're going to see some counters banned away here, likely something like the Renekton or maybe even a Varus.
Does mean now with the way that this pick order is going to go, there's going to be all to play for regarding banning out these bottom lane champions. BLG, they're going to knock off some of the more standard top lane picks, but AL, they could just either keep limiting that support pool from On, maybe take out the Alistar as one that could potentially mute the Nico engage later. It depends on whether they want to focus on getting a beneficial lane matchup, in which case you don't mind letting some of those melee supports through, or, as we see here, banning away some of the range ones to make sure that you can play and get that winning lane for AL in the bottom lane.
Yep, the Sion ban makes sense. It is essentially a handshake where the Mbessa can get ahead early, but then the Sion's going to be Sion, and Flandre, one of the better Sions that we have in the world, especially when he's put on that island on the weak side. So gonna have to be resorting to something else as we see On continue to get targeted, but the Karma not left unbanned at this point. It is still available. We'll see if that, alongside maybe a Caitlyn here for Viper, that could be a fun 2v2.
It's definitely on the table. It's kind of a weird one of you would pick the Caitlyn first because you know AL wouldn't then be able to take the Karma away from you. However, they might just be trying to think of what ADCs AL would like to pick up, and pick up something like the Varus here, who is a more standard, fits into both comps decently well, can play the variety of styles, and more of a pick away. I do love the idea of a Sivir in this draft because there's going to be a lot of close range scrapping, a lot of running at each other. Kai'Sa can serve a similar purpose. Don't dislike that, but I think I want to see something that can pump out a lot of damage for AL, particularly from Hope, and the Sivir does hit all of the buttons that we need AL to do in this comp.
Have some wave clear, have some late game damage, and just have a good ability to stay alive in this Varus lane as well. Which is certainly one of the more oppressive ones that we have in the game at this very moment. Now waiting for the final pickup, likely for Flandre up in the top lane. This was something that he picked a little bit earlier, and so is this one this season. The Rek'Sai going to come out as something that can also survive the brunt of that Mbessa early game.
Okay, we see a Lulu last pick. That I would be absolutely shocked if that doesn't mean we're getting on hit Varus this game. You wouldn't pick that if you're planning on going lethality, but good recognition that this is not going to be a slow game played with poke. This is going to be a game where everybody's looking at each other and then somebody jumps in and all hell breaks loose. So I'm so sorry. You're going to have a rough time this game, my dearest play-by-play.
That's what I love. That's what we're here for, baby. That's what this is. Chaos, name of the game here in the LPL. When I take a look at the drafts, though, I feel like AL have better go buttons, right? They have easier tools to start engages with. You have Flandre who can jump in. You have Tarzan with that Grand Starfall. Even Kael sneaking in with a minion as that Pop Blossom. BLG really relying on an Mbessa ultimate or Wind Becomes Lightning from Shun to start things off. And I feel like in that situation, having a little bit more of a conditional engage could mean that AL could have the advantage in terms of just being able to start fights on their own terms, which is always a very important thing to have in this league.
I do tend to agree with that. However, it's noted that while BLG lack the tools to go in first, they do have excellent tools to keep you away between the Xin Zhao ultimate, the Lulu ultimate. Even just running into Varus Rise conceptually is a scary prospect. And the Cassio typically wants you to run at them. So this is going to be a weird situation for Shanks to play through in these team fights. Obviously, we've got a ways to go before then. We've got to think about how the laning phase matchups goes and if that gets shook out in BLG's favor.
When you think of the LPL in 25, 26, you think of these two teams. One of them going to end up as the first seed in the 2026 Split 1 playoffs. Let's do it. It's game 1 between BLG and AL.
These are the Gyos I was promised.
Yeah, we haven't been getting them in Group Nirvana as much, but today the Gyos have been incredible. Maybe it's some New Year's buff as well, but I'll take it as we get some heavy summoner spell usage here before the minions even come in. These guys are coming to party.
To make sure you get control of this lane as soon as possible, particularly when there are these level 3 gankable junglers in the game, is always something you've got to be wary of. Either side could make their way down if the health bars get too low.
As you can see, the importance and the emphasis for both Hope and Viper to get that level 2 first is going to be won out by the Varus Lulu lane, as they're going to get first push here and likely get those first 3 melee minions to unlock that level 2 power spike. They also have their own jungler in the area at this point, but they are pathing away. Which means that Shun will not be around the level 3, level 4 mark. It's perhaps good to get that early push now to make sure that you are able to at least maintain some dominance and not be in a position to get ganked later.
Precisely. If you can get the bounce back so that you're in a safe enough position by the time Pantheon is down there, then you're doing quite well. As stated, Tarzan is the main man for this roster that gets done, but instead it does look like BLG are just looking to secure that push prio so Shun can get in there and take stuff away from Tarzan.
It's me and invade. Yeah, so instead of going for the full clear, gonna try to match Tarzan at his blue buff.
Ooh.
Gonna spot that ward and now go in for the steal of the wolves. Tarzan smites away the big one, which is of course the most important, but denies some XP, as now On is walking straight into the Tribush, just gonna phase check it and die. First blood to anyone's legend. On's brain seemingly off for that one, and now Shun in some danger as well. Kael running in to make sure that Shun is not able to contest this blue buff, and AL get a kill for free.
Did he think he was on Alistair? I don't know what just happened there. That was objectively not correct. Okay, cool. Well, that kind of stifles the play for BLG, but they make a counter on
Shanks
mid.
be in trouble as well. Yeah, that's an easy kill. It seemed like Shanks was in a position to get away from that rune prison, but opted against it and still ends up burning his flash. So 2 interesting kills, to say the least, has evened up our game.
Yeah, capital INT interesting, absolutely. Shanks and On handshaking to keep this game interesting in the early. As Shun will be able to walk over and secure one of the Scuttle Crabs, but as we take what is probably a breather, there's no way... What is happening?
On is playing like he's an 80 carry in this game when he really is not. He's going to dodge away from the Tangle Barbs there. A little early, does provide a little bit of a punch, but fighting over these wards certainly is a choice at this point in the game. And so taking stock of how that has left things, the mid jungle for BLG certainly ahead to start things off is going to be important. Knight getting an early tier, get that stacking.
Oh boy.
But on the other side, Hope and Kael get out of this lane that is potentially going to be one that BLG were able to control in early on.
And we do see Tarzan walking over there trying to contest the second Raptors respawn. Will not be able to steal that away, but does have his own camps to get back to. Partly that vision control that we saw On fought so difficult for is going to be enough to ward away the AL jungler, as we briefly... I'm going to say briefly because so far this game has not disappointed with non-stop action, but briefly have a moment where neither jungler is in a position to exactly fish for a gank, but they are both on sides of the map where lanes are in beneficial positions should they go wandering. Will just be Tarzan going for the full clear. Shun does not want to impact that bottom lane. listen, as soon as level 6 gets ticked over, I'm not going to be surprised if we see a Grand Starfall pressed off cooldown to make something happen.
Not an easy target, as all four laners, I should say, on BLG do have their flashes, but certainly an opportunity to at least burn some of those, get your lanes in a good spot. I think the bot lane certainly can be something that maybe AL can take advantage of, as Hope is a little bit ahead in terms of experience at this point. Tangle Barbs also land onto On. He has to burn the heal again, taken down to below 200 HP. And that's almost going to be another kill. That Q not doing enough damage, as the sad B on BLG On is going to be forced to head back to base once again.
Really makes it rough, as finally this tower is going to start to get ticked down. Ooh. Throwing down poke. Curious if they're going to go for the cancel on the reset, but with only one person in the lane, it does mean Viper will get a bit extra XP in his pocket off of these minion waves. Might lead to a potential surprise level 6 angle from the Varus if we do see something happen. We have Knight now with the Realm Warp available. Can look to go on Shanks here, who is still no flash, but does unlock Petrifying Gaze just in time.
See if they still want to make this happen. It worked once, and now Shanks does not have a flash, although, as you mentioned, does have the ulti. A lot of time being spent here in the mid lane for Shun, but there's not much to clear out. Waiting for that second spawn of the Raptors to come back around. Dragon is available. Tarzan waiting for that crab, looks like, to make sure he's able to stay ahead in the farm game. Currently up about a camp.
Actually, I don't know if this is going to knock him up to level 6. Normally it would, but we did actually have Shun steal away the 2 small wolves, so this is going to be quite narrow. If he doesn't get the level 6, that is quite a bit of a skirmishing power lost. It is only level 5 for the Pantheon. Mitigates some of that early pressure where he would have had map priority to do something right now.
Instead, a little bit more farming, and I think that's probably for the better, considering some of the decisions that were made earlier on in this game. It looked like they both were testing the waters a little bit, decided it's too hot, they're going to back on out, maybe wait until later on, because both these teams really do excel in team fighting, specifically on BLG's side, with the fact that Viper is going for the on-hit Varus, right? If you were going for more of the poke, maybe you want to skirmish a little bit earlier on, but now with that late game win condition alongside Knight, definitely feels like BLG are also okay with scaling in this game.
Definitely want to circle that one of the late game win condition. The on-hit Varus takes probably the longest of any of the Varus builds to come online, needs at least 1 to 2 items, 2 to 3 items, sorry, before it starts to actually pump out significant damage. Before then, you still have the Varus ultimate, so you're not useless in team fights by any means. But with Hope getting that first gifted kill and being able to sneakily grab a cull in the meantime as well, does mean this Sivir, who is one of the best champions at accelerating herself in gold by just hoovering up farm, should be getting a bit stronger than Viper before these team fights really start to roll on. Unless we see some major jungle intervention, I expect this to just be kind of a calm lane. Thing is about Sivir with the spell shield and Nico with the clones does make it difficult for Viper to find an ultimate angle. That is one of the main reasons we do see Sivir picked into the Varus generally.
With that, AL have position around this dragon. That would be a good way to start this game off here on the bottom side for Tarzan. As he heads down on there, should be able to take this one rather uncontested. We actually see shouldn't go back to base right as the grubs spawn. Feels like with Flandre pushing this wave in right now, they don't feel comfortable enough to go for it immediately, and that means that BLG are going to be behind on the neutral objective front to start this game off.
Gonna make it difficult if AL continues to stack up those objectives, but by then we have plenty of time to go. Flandre may, I believe, yes, okay, with the Rek'Sai, they have fished out Vision knowing this is being done. There is always the potential for Tarzan to ult over. We have definitely not Hope in the mid lane, currently lurking around, could potentially go for a collapse. Tarzan is still finishing this blue buff though, before deciding whether he's going to impact the lane or go for the grubs, or honestly neither by the looks of it.
Yeah, it feels like, you know, Tarzan, a player that always is able to make his presence known on the Rift, and we haven't seen him go for any ganks of any sort, but the way that he's been clearing, the way he's been positioned in the right places at the right time, still feels like he's had a very high impact to this game. So
far, it's been a lot of a pressure gauge that neither team has really wanted to let pop after it exploded at the 3-minute mark. The thing is, the Xin Zhao definitely does scale better as the game goes on, particularly having the Lulu in the pocket. when Xin Zhao gets an enchanter, the amount of sustain innate to his kit can really go crazy in these team fights, and it might prove deceptive when AL go in and try and burst out a single target, which is what the Pantheon wants to do. He wants to press W on someone, have the rest of his team use their CC or wombo combo damage to blow them up, and then reset, play another slow engage, and look for another play, as he is diving first play.
Wow, right on to Bin. Underneath the tier 1 turret, Flandre does land the knockup, but it is followed by the public execution of Bin. Void Rush comes through. Bin not going to flash away for the damage, but does make sure Flandre goes down to the final turret shot. It's a confirmed 1-for-1 as Tarzan does kill him with the Comet Spear, but now he's going to come up with the Realm Warp and make sure that none of the wave is lost.
Oh, hold on. He's ghosting aggressively. Tarzan may have to flash out here.
Going to be okay for now. He uses the Aegis to get away from a lot of that damage from the overload, but does have to flash away. So all things considered, a 1-for-1, plus a couple of summoner spells and ultimates being blown across the board.
Very close stuff right there. Even if that dive had been slightly better executed, this is the main problem. You're about to see it. He's been getting to buffer this ultimate. He walked away from where he was expecting Tarzan to land, which gave him enough time to get away with this. And as we get to see, it was essential for Flandre eating that extra tower shot and going down. Knight was there, though, to pick up, and I think him trading Ghost here for Pantheon Flash is very, very worth it. Lower cooldown on that summoner, and more likely than not, that Pantheon was looking to flash on the rise anyway.
Now Kael doing a little bit of harassing, not following the minion AI, so Knight knows that it is okay to back away from that wave. Not worth the extra 14 gold.
Damn, minion got hands.
Exactly. So Kael doing his best to try to make his presence known in the mid lane, as Knight and On have now resorted to farming out this wave, clearing it out, maybe trying to get a Crystalline Bracer proc or two. But AL still in general holding on to the lead. A lot of that, though, going towards the bottom lane, where Hope has really been able to pick up a ton of plates, get a lot of CS, and also going to get that call completion soon. He's going to be pretty accelerated at this point in the game.
Is a bot laner to first have a full item. This Essence Reaver is basically saying, I get to infinite wave clear now, and you cannot do anything about it. So, you do hold on, shouldn't be going for this.
Going in, Flandre forced to flash away. Bin with that Q3, able to finish off the kill. But Tarzan is here, and he has a decent chunk of damage in his own right. But Bin follows up with the public execution. That eclipse with a lot of survivability. And in goes Shun with the flash, and the wind becomes lightning. 3 talent strike, and the kill. That's 2-0 in favor of BLG.
I think that AL simply weren't ready for that kind of play. I'm pretty sure Tarzan didn't have stun going into it, had just used it on his Krogs, I suppose. It didn't look like Bin got stunned at any point there. So, yeah, going to be very happy feeding some gold into the main man in the top lane and continuing the trend so far. It's not 15 minutes yet, but BLG solo lane is having a lead in this matchup thus far.
Thought process was right here for Tarzan. You know, hover Flandre, but just wasn't ready for Shun to come in quick enough.
So does he actually get a stun here? It didn't look like he was stunned under tower. No, okay. I was about to say, surely if he's stunned under tower, then Bin takes some amount of damage, but just not enough, and clean execution. Nice flash from Shun to make sure he gets in there. Even an extra second or so would have given Tarzan time to close off his E and pop Bin with the last Q. Nice little comeback.
With that, it is a top side, very far ahead for BLG. Remember what we said in the pre-show here? Colin, it's kind of all coming back around. Solo laners for BLG, able to put themselves into good positions. A lot of that, though, with the help of Shun, who has really been a catalyst in terms of playmaking here for Bilibili Gaming with his return to the lineup. On the bot side, though, it is Hope and Kael really keeping the gold in a reasonable position. We'll see if it matters here. It's potentially BLG going to try to start up this dragon.
Thing is, though, Viper has picked up the Blade the Rune King, so he is no slouch in a team fight. He's not at peak power by any means, but he's definitely self-sufficient at this point. And now it's kind of just figuring out what we're going to do. As we start to see most of the quests finish off, it is just support for AL and mid lane for BLG not done. Does mean that Knight necessarily going to take a little bit longer in the side lane. He's probably very close to the quest by the fact that Shanks has it and he doesn't. He did pick up his kill, so that should, in theory, make him pretty much on the edge there. Once that empowered recall will help with being able to rotate the fights off of basing. Now he's just posturing around Dragon.
And right now, Shun on the top side of the map, so will not be in a position to contest. It looks like the goal will be to play a pseudo-split map situation. Have the bottom side really be dominated by AL, top side dominated by BLG. That's where the goal is allocated, and that is where these players will be spending a lot of their time. A 2-0 Dragon lead for AL certainly will be helpful in terms of scaling towards that late game, but we'll see if that comes to the cost of Flandre's life, who is in significant danger here. Down to about 500 HP, of course. Going to be able to get some healing back in that burrowed form, but Shun is chasing him down. Nice dodge from Flandre. That's the little stuff here that makes him one of the best top laners in the world.
Well aware after the previous play that he can avoid this as long as he dodges away from that essential ability, and will be able to TP back up top. Has the unleashed TP at this point, is going to be safe up there. Tarzan pressuring bot lane, but Knight's quite tanky.
Look at the damage Knight's able to provide underneath the turret. Kael with the Pop Blossom. This Knight flashes away from it to make sure he does not get stunned up, but Bin comes in with the TP of his own, has the public execution, and will use it onto Shanks. Gets hit by the Rune Prison, but the Petrifying Gaze in response is going to be enough for the Embested to drop. So it's a 1-for-1 in this fighter on the bottom side, and Hope hasn't even arrived yet. Chain of Corruption goes wide, but now Bin looking and hunting for a potential stun. Not going to find it, as it will just be BLG backing away with that 1-for-1, but the first tower also going in favor of Flandre.
We'll put a bit of a dent into that gold lead in the top side, and I have no idea how Shanks was able to get that Petrifying Gaze off onto Bin, considering he was midway through a spin animation. So that was kind of crazy. If that doesn't land, then I think that Bin is able to sustain up through it, as this is just too aggressively posturing for AL. This isn't what we want to see. Shanks not able to walk through the tower range. If he were to take aggro here, he'd be in a bit of a rough spot. And Knight is just so damn tanky. On actually backs off instead of taking the Realm Walk, seeing that the Nico is about to drop down on them when they land. Bin does not get the initial pick, but with this chase down, I think the stun also came in a bit preemptive for Tarzan, because Bin was still in the middle of the public execution animation. And while it does result in a 1-for-1, you have your Sivir having to burn ultimate just to evac your support out of the play.
Now Shanks, without any flash or ultimate, is going to be in trouble once again, as Shun has arrived to the bottom lane to take him down. That is Shanks' third death of the game. He has been targeted heavily by the hands of BLG. And he'll be down for the next 30 seconds, but Tarzan looking to make a play of his own. Uses the Grand Starfall to get inner access into that mid lane tier 1 turret. Potentially try to cut Viper off if he goes a greedy route. Gonna get spotted out by that Scrying Orb, but it might not even matter, as he is forced to cleanse. Does use the Hail of Arrows to try and slow Tarzan down. And now the Chain of Corruption has come in. Bin has come back from base, and BLG are looking to party once again, and AL are not in the right position. Viper gets payback onto Tarzan, and they'll lose yet another man.
Longtime former teammates, Viper comes out on top in that one. Just barely playing on the edge. Does have to burn his summoners though, makes this Varus a target in future fights. But we need to see AL force something. They may have the Dragon lead, but if BLG play this correctly, I think the game is quite in their hands. If you go to the objective first and then make AL walk into you, BLG should be in a favourable position. That's what we're talking about where it came to how these comps execute. They have less tools for going forward, but much better tools for having you run into them.
We're going to see in this game what Hope is made of down in the bottom lane for AL. He is one of the more consistently tenured, one of the longer tenured players here for the team. Him, Shanks, and Kael were a part of this squad back even in 2024 before Flandre and Tarzan joined in the party. But Hope, has had a bit of an up and down career, really on the up and up recently, but with the lead over one of the better AD carries that we have in the league in Viper, gonna have to be the main damage dealer in this game that is relatively still, even, if AL want to have a chance of pulling away with it.
I mean, Knight is about to pop over to have the Seraphs and the Rod of Ages in pocket. Shanks not that close to it right now. Does actually have the pen shoes rather than going for the MR shoes himself. Does mean that Knight will take a lot longer to die when Shanks is hitting him versus the other way around. But if Shanks is allowed the free hit, he should tear through BLG. He's just not been given such an opportunity, constantly getting jumped on by Shun, by Bin in this side lane whenever he goes too far up. And you can see he is being reticent to push up right now. Even though he's the one with a global ultimate jungler, if he shows himself and doesn't have backup, Shun's already here to force something bot lane.
He's here to protect Knight. just like he did in 2024 on that run to the World Championship Finals. Of course, with that time apart, Knight was like, hey, get this guy back in here. And so far, it has worked out in a pretty good way, specifically for the mid laner for BLG. As the third dragon has spawned, it'll be a Chemtech Drake, Chemtech Soul potentially on the table if AL are able to pick up 2 more. And if BLG are able to pick up 4. It'll be anyone's legend starting this one up right now. It looks like they're just playing it as a bait. Make sure that the full positioning is made aware by BLG. Still a Flandre pushing on the top side with Bin instead opting to join the rest of his team at least for a moment. Shun playing very aggressively and forces a rocket belt away from Kael. That is a big engage tool that will no longer be available as BLG regain their control around the bottom river.
This is meant to be the moments when AL comes out on top. Fighting around objectives is where they made their bread and butter in the league, and now with Rift being shut down, they are going to regroup as 4 and look to try and defend this mid lane tier 1, a very important objective for keeping map control, particularly with how essential dragons are going to be to a win form for both teams.
Kael using the clone to face check that brush where a lot of BLG members were in, and Tarzan opting to go forward is going to just get met here by Shun, who now has a wild growth on top of him. Only one gets stunned up by the petrifying gaze, but Shun is taken, and the Comet Spear from Tarzan will take him down. That's no jungler available here for BLG, and that is the signal for anyone's legend to go forward. Teleport comes in from Tarzan. They're going to go forward onto Viper. The Aegis keeping him alive for so long, nearly able to take the Varus down, but he will live by the slimmest of margins, and Bin has come in to clean up the rest of the fight. Flandre tap flashes in. He's able to get one back on tonight, but the Mbessa is just massive at this point in the game. Bin 1,500 gold up 4-2-1. Looking to tear apart this Rek'Sai, and Shanks is in some danger as well. There's no ultimate available here for Bin, so he will have to back away, but BLG all in all come out on top in the fight. It's a 2-for-2 overall, but Kael still not long for this world either.
Both junglers respawning. I feel like we're going to get this salty run back very, very quickly as the map starts to repopulate. And we get to see this one kicks off by Tarzan, the guy who pulls the trigger, going in, jumps onto Knight. But look at this, as soon as the Zinzal comes down, everybody dives in from AL to try and DPS, but the Lulu ult completely stifles that engage, and Shun with a really nice sidestep to not get stunned up. Tarzan collects him on the end, but as we get to see here, it's Bin rotating down, causing the problem. Flandre TP's in, and it should be all but curtains for AL if it weren't for Bin causing such disruption on the backline. The dive partners for Tarzan are stopped, and BLG are able to walk away with the win.
So overall a 3-for-2 as Kael was able to die, respawn, and make it back to the pit, but it still means that BLG were able to retake the gold lead, also add a dragon to their arsenal. Make sure that there is no soul point available for anyone's legend the rest of the way. But you can see what our JD bot thinks down at the bottom of your screen. Still a very closely contested game that could go either way, as AO showed that they still have a little bit left to fight with. Hope still very much in a strong position, nearly finishing off that Infinity Edge. But it felt like there here, Melvin. The engage from Tarzan very, very telegraphed, and it felt like BLG were very ready for it.
That's one of the things about playing this Pantheon is unless you're getting the Grand Starfall in a position where you're not posturing for an objective, it's quite difficult to force something that the enemy team isn't ready for. That's why I want to see Hope being the guy that pulls the trigger with Tarzan to force something 30 seconds, 20 seconds, 40 seconds even, before the objective, as opposed to waiting until it's already alive. AL, they will do better if they can stand in front of the dragon, in front of the Baron, and hit it and make BLG run at them. But they kind of were getting drawn between, we need to keep Flandre top to keep Bin up top lane, because if Bin's down here, then that's their main engage tool. So AL was kind of just posturing as 4 people, not wanting to pull the trigger, and by the time they did, they were able to trade 1-for-1, but it wasn't able to convert into anything meaningful, as now we have a red buff fight with Tarzan being looked at quite aggressively. It's not going to be resulting in anything, but it is losing prio for AL around this Baron pit with the top lane tower going down.
Yeah, at this point in the game, the fact that Knight able to clear out any wave that he chooses right now that is around the top side, and now Realmorph is coming in underneath the tier 1 turret. Could be in danger, are anyone's legend. Kael does not hit anybody with that Pop Blossom, and he's already down. And so is Flandre, with Bin landing a beautiful public execution. So it's the tower plus 2 more in favor of Bilibili Gaming, as they have had all of the right answers in this mid-game.
Oh, AL want to counterattack by knocking Billy down here. If they are able to kill him, it would let them go and contest the objective, but no. Bin does have TP. Yeah, like, he's ahead of you now. You can't do anything here, AL. You can't play for this.
The 5v3 Hope does not have the Infinity Edge yet. That is a major power spike that has not been unlocked. Bin just trying to soak up as much pressure as he can to allow his team to wear purple for the next 3 minutes, and they land a Rune Prism on the Shanks as well. Kael has returned from the Death Realm. Shanks does not hit anybody with that petrifying gaze, so it will be everybody on the retreat from anyone's Legend, and BLG now having the Baron power play.
Okay, with Knight having to Ghost and Bin using both Summoners, the best thing AL can hope for is setting up a play to kill these solo laners. It has been 1-3-1ing that has gotten BLG this lead, and they are playing so well around the map. This is what took the series the first time they played in Game 3, was BLG just being smarter on the map. Knight, really nice flash away to avoid getting picked off there, as they do just get the 2, chain it into Baron. Bin waste time / gets chased, you can call it either way, but the end result is the same. We have 1 minute until the Chemtech Dragon is alive. If AL can get this and secure themselves a soul point, they still have breath in this game. I think if BLG are to take away this Dragon, then AL, they're starting to get outscaled, and I don't think they're going to be able to pull the brakes if they don't get this Dragon.
Thing is, there's a big pointy difference in terms of the strength and power that anyone's Legend have here in this next fight, and that is the IE that Hope has picked up. Did not have it in that last fight, and he is about as strong as this Sivir is going to be in terms of comparison to the rest of the map. 3 full items on this champion, nearing level 16, and AL already off to a good start as they pick off Knight and force him to use the Realm Warp defensively. That is a tool that they will no longer have at their disposal, but Shun still looking to go in. Lands that audacious charge onto Kael, lands a knockup as well, and there's a Lulu on top of him to shut the Nico down. He dashes away from the petrifying gaze. Shun is popping off. He's got a triple kill here in this one. And now Flandre has teleported in, but is immediately forced to use that tunnel to escape. It is a 3-0 in favor of BLG, and that makes sure there is no hope for AL to contest this Dragon.
BLG call it too little too late from AL pulling off their attempt at a play. It was exactly what we wanted them to do 20 minutes ago. And not able to walk away with anything, it will be BLG securing an even larger gold lead. They won't be cracking the base off of this Baron, but I think keeping themselves in the game on Dragons is a very happy prize. As, yeah, this was exactly what I was hoping AL would do earlier. They would force a play first, but Shun has so much resources in him. He's just so tanky, and Shanks over the wall does 0 damage to Shun until this point. And when your Cassiopeia can't DPS, how do you expect to get through a Lulu-empowered Xin Zhao?
Man, it feels so good to be Xin Zhao in these games. You're already fed, you got a Lulu buffing you up, increasing your attack speed, increasing your health, making sure you do not die. And that is exactly the feeling that Shun has pulsing through his veins at the 28-minute mark of this first game. BLG, off of a nice set of sequences here in the mid-game, have ballooned the gold lead to over 5,500 and have left AL in a very, very bad spot. Baron no longer available for them. That is spawning soon, so should be the next couple of minutes where not much will be happening unless some major positioning issues are going to be had. And on that note, gotta call out Kael a little bit. Getting caught out by Shun there. You are the main engaged tool, and he died without burning the ultimate or his flash.
It's one of those situations where you're kind of in desperation mode for AL, and if somebody's going to pull the trigger, you would have previously thought it to be Tarzan, but we need Kael to be there with him. We need to see this Nico ult going on to at least 2 people. But the Xin Zhao, Shun has been so oppressive in these team fights, muting several of Kael's engages, not giving the potential for the 5-man Pot Blossom to save the game, as now it will just be a slow posturing around the Baron. Playing careful. Nice celebration for Knight there. 13th total. 5,000 assists. That's quite a big number.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows the tenure of this player. Remember, he was kind of the new guy in 2020, 2019 when he was on this upstart top esports team that made it all the way to Worlds, and take a look at where he's at now. 5,000 total assists. I mean, we're on milestone watch right now as well. I believe Bin is currently 14 kills away from 2,000. It could happen here in this series if things continue to go the right way. We'll keep our eyes on that. The graphic showed up on our Huya feed that we were able to relay that information to you guys. As just showcasing, right, the amount of star power that is on this BLG team.
Oh yeah, I mean, as far as super teams go, you can't say it's not. Simply put, you can't say it's not a super team when at least 3 of these players were considered top of role several times in the past few years. Arguably 4 going on 5, really, depending on how far back we want to look, as they are now just trying to lead this game to a clean execution, not give AL a way back into the game. We have seen several times throughout the split, teams have not been able to finish out games because with the changes to this season, with the changes to tower plates, with the changes to how gold works, minion works, it's made it so much easier to throw a winning game state. If you make one mistake, there's a lot of standing gold around the map for you to pick up constantly. And the later we get on into this game, the less the gold lead matters, the less it becomes just about dragons, just about champion scaling. And while I would say BLG have favourable champion scaling individually, 3-item Cassiopeia, a near 4-item Sivir, still has the potential to run a team fight if you do play uncoordinated.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is going to have to be on what exactly BLG do to start a potential fight. It looks like that's going to be what they do around the Baron, although they are backing away from it right now. Shanks and Tarzan now in position to look for a sort of counter engage, but he thought it was hard to kill Shun 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
He's got a GA now. You gotta kill him twice.
Yeah, that doesn't look so good, especially because Tarzan does not have his yet, so it means if he were to go in, yeah, okay, BLG's plenty away. If they can find Tarzan,
yeah,
they can take Baron for free.
When you're playing Smash and you got an extra stock, you get to play a little bit more aggressive, make sure you're able to play it with your life a little bit more, and that's what Tarzan is going to force Shun to do. He has the Wild Growth on top of him now, but still in a pretty good position. Pop Blossom only finds on, and the fight now beginning in earnest with mid laners fighting around the top side of the map. Flandre on a teleport is going to find on a flank, but Tarzan is in a bad position himself, and he'll get taken down at the first casualty, and Flandre goes into the middle of a 1v5, and he's not going to like those odds one bit. He flashes on out. And now it is AL on a complete retreat underneath their own tier 2. But the Realm Warp is going to stop any sort of sense to that. Shanks goes golden, but it will deny the inevitable, as now Hope is the only one left standing around the fight. It is an overall 3-0 as BLG dominate once more and will pick up their second Baron of the game.
Question is, what do they get done at the same time? Knight looking to knock down this top lane tower as well with the dragon spawning. I mean, there's the potential for AL to go for some kind of counter-attack. You have Pantheon up with ult in 12 seconds, but where can you even find anything? It looks like it's just going to be forfeiting across the board, as this was such a weird start to the fight. AL go for a force onto Shun, and it looks good for a few moments with Kael on the other side of the fight, though he's not able to get into the pit and CC Shun on, then gets targeted off while Knight is being zoned away. And with the Lulu backing away, it does look a bit dire for a moment. However, Viper and Bin come in to close out the fight in BLG's favor.
I mean, I say this with love, as, wow, Shanks barely got away from that one. But Kael not having the best game in terms of finding the right place. Pop Blossoms, I know he's a lot on his plate, but have not been on the mark just yet. And that means that BLG been able to take control, and specifically off of finding picks onto Kael, who has been one of the most consistent, one of the best supports that we've had in the league for over a year, say, at this point. BLG pick up their third Chemtech Dragon, and they are looking good, but they could have maybe picked off on as Tarzan went in with an Empowered Blast Cone, but it'll immediately be stymied, and Shun still going to be invulnerable at this point. The Guardian Angel has been popped. Kael looking for another engage and does find a 2-man stun, but it will only be the Guardian Angel being popped off of Shun, and now Bin is straight into the backline, publicly executing anyone's legends right next to their own base. That is going to be another ace picked up as BLG will march in the mid lane as 5 strong to take game 1 of this series.
What decisive fashion to kick off the series. BLG fighting to call themselves top 1 in the league. No talk about this top 2 stuff. as they will walk it down, get their first game in the series. But remember, they still need to close it out if they want to be going into that first spot heading into playoffs.
It was close until it wasn't. And then
Yep.
BLG just said, all right, time to win the game. They go up 1-0 and are now one game away from claiming that top spot in Group Ascend, giving themselves the best playoff positioning possible.
I'm curious who's going to be getting MVP for this game, if I'm honest, because I could see a lot of different lines. I could see a lot of different interpretations. I don't think we're going to get more than 5 people voting for the same person when it comes down to the official vote. Where's your head leaning after that?
I might go on for this one. I mean,
Right.
I feel like on the Lulu, able to not do much in the laning phase after what was, not the best start, but the fact that he was able to keep somebody like Shun alive for so long, and on the counter side, Kael had a big responsibility in terms of forcing the engagement. I feel like a lot of that was stopped by the Lulu, forcing polymorphs out, using things like that wild growth. You could also give it to Bin on the Mbessa. I thought he had a good game. Really, everybody on BLG was able to step up, and I think that is why they ended up taking the win. As you mentioned, I think you can go a lot of different ways here.
I think it probably won't be Viper just because he was relatively quiet throughout the game. He wasn't needed to be anything significant. But Knight, we saw so many good Rise ultimates, making just AL kind of struggle to be able to execute on these fights. They had tools to force. They didn't have enough tools to force, evidently. And maybe it's going to be just going back to the drawing board and figuring out, is this the kind of style we want to play? Or do we want more pick, potentially, in the comp? Maybe look towards something like that. Ashe Seraphine in the bottom lane, early prio that Bard for Kael, give something else. Because AL's strategy of getting a winning bot lane was working. They were ahead. Perhaps it was because of On's something at level 2. I think, in retrospect, probably the only reason I wouldn't give the MVP to On is because the only reason that game was close was him just walking it down bot level 2.
I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah, I blocked that from memory until I started thinking about who would be MVP.
Tried my best to forget the first 3 minutes of that game. To me, this was only a 30-minute long contest.
Yeah, but I think that as far as looking at how AL went to play about that game, they just weren't able to push their lead early. We needed to see more of that early forcing while Kael had the chance to go in. But Shun, I think he's probably, I've talked myself into it. I think Shun's going to be the main recipient of MVP because every single time we saw Nico go in, there was about a 70% chance that you were just getting swatted away before there was any chance for a Pot Blossom. And there were so many of these fights once the lead was in BLG's favor that Shun just sat there and laughed at AL. They did not have the damage to deal with him.
Yeah, I mean, it was dominance through the top side here for BLG, which has been the story in this matchup specifically this season, right? When you take a look at how the early to mid game has played out, it's been bot lane for AL, able to really, hold their own against Viper and On. But the solo laners, Shanks and Flandre, were struggling the last time these two teams faced off early in the season. And once again, we're not in the best position later in the season. Shanks, of course, getting caught out, dying to the hands of Shun multiple times. Flandre kind of failing on that dive early on onto Bin, and then getting countered dove a little bit later on into the game.
Yeah.
Shows how that top side matchup went for anyone's Legend, and those two players specifically are going to have to step it up if they want to have any chance in this best of 3, and even more realistically, chance against BLG once we get to the postseason.
Absolutely. I mean, both of these teams are locked for top 2, but you still want to be going in top 1. The easier you can make your life going into playoffs to get yourself up there for that first stand qualification, it's so important because we see it time and time again over the years. The teams that go to the internationals get a power boost when they come back. They'll have a couple weeks of slump of being overworked from having to do the international, but then when they come back, you can see the amount that they raise their gameplay because you've just had international competition. It's the best place to just intensive boot camp yourself up to high form. And listen, considering we know both of these teams are going to be in Ascend coming into the next split, I think we're probably going to be seeing this competition for top 2 consistently throughout the year.
I mean, it was so fun to watch these two teams face off anytime last season. Now we're going to get to do it all over again here for time being in the LPL. I love the idea of everybody playing everybody in in theory, but in practice, when there's 14 teams, getting the best matchups is always a good thing, and that has been one of the joys of Group Ascend. Every time you tune in, you don't necessarily know who's going to win. I think they ran a graphic that every team has kind of beaten everybody in a sort of circle here in Group Ascend. And we're seeing it here, although it could be a 2-0 sweep in terms of series score if BLG are able to pick up one more Nexus over the next 2 games.
That's not what I want. I want them to... Well, you know, I don't care if they get the 3rd game, but I am manifesting. I'm praying that we get to that 3rd game, because this was fine, but it wasn't as exciting as that first time around. I want to see more life from AL in Game 2. I want to see Tarzan on something that when it forces, it goes in and the team goes with it. Get him back on the Sejuani, please. I want this man on Sejuani.
So your answer, you want to be more proactive, and then the answer is Sejuani.
Yes.
You know what? If that's going to be what helps unlock somebody like Flandre, somebody like Shanks, maybe combine it with a Silas or an Ecton, a Fiora, whatever it is, I'm for it. I'm all in on it. But you're gonna have to convince me as we get into game if that is gonna be the case, because putting one of your best players on the Sejuani, it's a little risky when you have seen the performances of his teammates at this point, putting so much faith into a guy, into those other pieces when Tarzan really has been one of the more consistent players all year long.
You're definitely not wrong. I mean, you could look for the potential line of seeing if you can get that Kiana locked in. Is something that, while I personally don't like generally, is iconic to the region and is something that gives you a lot of agency. Shun, on the Kiana, won the last series in that Game 3 with a 5-man Kiana ult, so that might be an angle for Tarzan. But I think that the bigger weakness here is that AL didn't have leads in the solo lanes again. The only time we have seen AL manage to beat BLG was when mid lane had a lead. It did come off of the back of Knight playing Azir, so can we find a matchup for Shanks where that can happen where Knight isn't hamstrung? Who knows?
Right. Maybe the real goal is to mind control Shanks and mind control Knight into picking the Azir. It looks like the player of the game is Shun. You were correct on that one. He did play very solid. A lot of the reason why the top side of the map was able to get going. So that's his first MVP of the 2026 season, back on BLG.
Crazy. I mean, I suppose when you're next to Knight, it is kind of hard competition.
A lot of mouths to feed in that department, yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad he got the recognition, though. This was a really good game and made the difference consistently throughout it to keep BLG in the driver's seat. But it's not best of 1.
That is
it's not
right.
Best of 1.
More League of Legends to be played as Bilibili Gaming get themselves just a little bit closer to that #1 overall seed heading into the Split 1